Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where a wild Karen won't stop sending memes to OP's husband. Am I the jerk for ending a long-term friendship due to her constant meme sending to my husband, plus updates? I never thought I would find myself in this situation, but here we are. For context, I've been friends with Sarah, 30 female, for a few years. We've been through a lot together, and I considered her one of my closest friends. However, recently, something happened that I couldn't ignore. Over the past few months, Sarah has gotten close with my husband, and I was pretty much okay with us all hiking and going out to eat together. She came to our wedding, etc. However, all hours of the day, Sarah has been sending my husband, 28 male, a ton of messages and memes. At first, I didn't think much of it. My husband and I are both friendly people, and I know Sarah has a good sense of humor. But the frequency and nature of the messages started to make me uncomfortable. They weren't just occasional funny memes, it felt like she was constantly reaching out to him. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe I was overreacting, but the feeling persisted. I eventually talked to my husband about it, and while he assured me there was nothing going on, he got defensive, saying nothing's going on. I allowed them to still hang out, but I tried my hardest to not seem crazy. But yes, I feel crazy. So I decided to finally talk to Sarah. I approached her calmly and explained how her constant messaging made me uncomfortable. I used I statements to avoid sounding accusatory and tried to be as understanding as possible. Instead of understanding or apologizing, she got defensive. She insisted that it was harmless and that I was being ridiculous. The conversation did not go well, and shortly after, she blocked me on all social media. I was shocked and hurt. I never wanted to end our friendship over this, but I felt disrespected and ignored. I'm feeling a mix of emotions right now. On one hand, I feel justified in setting boundaries and protecting my marriage. On the other hand, I'm mourning the loss of a longtime friend. Has anyone else experienced something similar? How did you handle it? Any advice or perspective would be greatly appreciated. Update. I wanted to share an update with you about how the talk with my husband went, and I took your advice into consideration to talk with him. When he got off work, he called me, and we immediately didn't have a good start to the conversation. My husband thinks I'm jealous because he said it's not infidelity for her to send him memes and messages once in a while. He said he never saw Sarah in that light and that he just really liked her just as a friend, and he's told me that for many months, and he's just sick of me accusing him of infidelity when he works hard for me to be a stay-at-home mom. He never flirted with Sarah. He also said he's incredibly happy that I'm pregnant and he wants to start a family, so I've been a priority and not Sarah. However, he mentioned that he and his brother had grown somewhat distant from Sarah in the past because she was immature and had blocked many people throughout their friendship that I wasn't aware of. She's not good at taking criticism and has fought with other players when they went paintballing or to the gym, and this is something Sarah likes to do. Brag about blocking people, hence why she blocked me. My husband mentioned other friends brought up issues in the past. Sarah simply blocked them. It's something Sarah simply does. Anyway, when he got home, he hardly spoke, and there was a lot of awkwardness. I signed myself up for therapy because he didn't want marital counseling yet. At night, we finally managed to talk some more, and I asked my husband if they blocked each other. He told me he hasn't checked, but hasn't received anything from Sarah all day. I told him to block her. However, he doesn't believe in blocking anyone because he thinks it's immature and childish. He wants Sarah and me to salvage the friendship, and he wants to reach out to her so we can have a chance to talk about the fallout. His response about why he's so defensive about their friendship is not because of infidelity, but because he's disappointed that I ended a friendship that I had held on to for so long and that Sarah held me in high regard. He thinks sending memes isn't any proof of cheating, and he never flirted with her. He said he would just heart her memes. He apologized for oversharing with her, and he thought that she was just offering a shoulder to cry on. He said he's mainly sad about losing the other guy friends that Sarah brought to the table. They were all gamers and went to the gym together, and he's going to miss that if Sarah and I don't reconcile our friendship. My husband is also sad about all the drama this has caused and how Sarah's guy friends are going to badmouth me because I confronted her. He told me it's too soon for marital counseling for him. I didn't want to force that upon him. Right now, I feel like I'm in limbo and don't have the strength to just get up and leave him if that's the answer you're looking for. I will say I'm going to try to look at his phone myself when I have the energy, probably today, and confirm if anything is going on. It's easier said than done. A part of me believes him and that he doesn't like her, but their friendship still makes me feel weird. I didn't check his phone because I was going through a huge energy drain and it wasn't good for my baby. I prioritized my well-being and kept things low-key. It was also terrifying for me, and I guess I'm not strong enough for that just yet. I will probably do it today though, now that my husband and I have talked more. Ending the friendship was her reaction, not yours. You just brought up a conversation about your boundaries, which she took offense to. Also, I'm laughing at your husband's reaction to you bringing up counseling. Nah, we'll just wait until it gets real bad. No need to waste time on maintenance and prevention. This is so weird that this is his stance, and it sucks to read your update. His unwillingness to end a friendship that's making you uncomfortable and then state that you're insecure and jealous is really something. Don't let him talk you out of your gut feeling. Maybe he's telling you the truth, but he has been oddly evasive about everything, and his excuse for refusing to block her is pretty stupid. He's also doing a ton of redirecting here. It wouldn't be so suspicious if he stopped getting this defensive and downplaying everything. Your first post sounded like this situation had pretty decisively been an emotional affair. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. I know this is a crazy concept, but what if people actually put their spouse's feelings above everything else? Am I the jerk for breaking up with my boyfriend of 10 years after he proposed during my best friend's wedding? I'm 36, female. My best friend, Amy, who's 37, just got married last week. I was her maid of honor and worked to the bone to make sure her wedding was a success. For the most part, it went well. My friend looked beautiful, the food was great, and the flowers and decorations were incredible. She was so happy, and it made me feel proud that I was a part of the group that worked to give her such an important day. Amy and I have been friends since we were in elementary school. We've reached all of our milestones together, went to the same college, and even live in the same neighborhood. She's the closest I have to a sister, and even our parents joke that we are reborn twins. Needless to say, Amy is one of the most important people in my life. At the end of my master's, I met Danny, 31 male. He hired me as a tutor, and after a few sessions, he asked me out. I had never dated someone younger, but he was very sweet and I liked him, so I said yes. We've been together ever since. He has an older brother, Bobby, who's 39, who was introduced to Amy at a house party I hosted a few years later. The two were immediately taken with each other and started to date. Eventually, Bobby asked Amy to marry him. During the wedding preparation, Danny casually mentioned how it would be a cute idea to propose during his brother's wedding. Bobby agreed, and both Amy and I immediately shut it down. I told Danny I found that kind of tacky. A person's wedding is a special day for them, and stealing the attention was just wrong. After that, they stopped talking about it, so we kept going with the preparations. At the wedding reception, Bobby suddenly stopped the music to make an announcement. He said the day was very special as he was marrying the love of his life and kept singing praises to Amy. I thought it was a cute gesture, so I just moved to sit in my chair and listen to the speech. Then Bobby said a sentence that made me dread what was coming. And now the day is more special, thanks to my brother's announcement. Suddenly, Danny was in front of me, kneeling with a box. Amy was in tears and she ran outside. I screamed at Danny, telling him he was a jerk, and I went after Amy. At first, she was angry at me, thinking I was involved in it. So were the other bridesmaids. Thankfully, one of the girls had seen me call out Danny and told the others about it. I told Amy I would never do this to her. We hugged, and we all got out of the venue to Amy's suite. We found out later, through the men's mother, that Bobby gave Danny permission without speaking to Amy about it. I called Danny that same night to tell him we were through and that I wanted him out of my apartment by the end of the week. I sent my mom to pick up my dog and parrot just to make sure he didn't do anything to them or take them with him. He ended up taking my TV and game consoles. I had them since before he moved in, but his mother was nice enough to bring the consoles back. For all I care, he can keep the stupid TV. Amy is now trying to get her marriage annulled since she feels she can't trust Bobby. The boy's mother has been nothing but a saint to us. She even paid back Amy the money she spent on the wedding and told her to use the honeymoon with one of her friends. So Amy and I are now packing to go to Australia. She and Bobby had postponed it for a month so they could take a whole month of vacation. I'm a freelancer that works from home, so I'll just take my laptop. Since this whole fiasco, Danny has been blowing up my phone. Some of his friends have joined in, claiming that I'm a jerk for throwing out a 10-year relationship over a mistake. They say he only wanted to make a cute gesture to prove how much he loves me. Except this cute gesture was taking over my best friend's wedding after I had said how much I dislike that kind of stuff. Still, a part of me feels like I'm overreacting. So Reddit, am I the jerk here? And to the people PMing me, calling me names or insulting me, have the courage to post in public or just leave me alone. I have no interest in cowards that hurl insults in private. Also, for the record, even if it had been the perfect proposal, for my own reasons, I would have refused to marry. We were not in marriage talks. Far from it. Not the jerk. I don't understand why people are so stupid as to do something that they have specifically been told not to do, then try to defend themselves by saying, "But I thought you'd like it." Their mom gets it. So he wanted to prove how much he loved you by doing something you already told him that you'd hate? No. They wanted to peer pressure you into accepting. Not the jerk. You both told them no, and they did it anyway. Neither of you wants to deal with that sort of crap for the rest of your lives. You both dodged a bullet. Not the jerk. You're the jerk. You guys aren't innocent. They should have listened and were inconsiderate, and you have a right to be displeased, but they didn't have bad intentions. Amy is a psycho for being unable to handle someone else getting 5 minutes of attention at her wedding, and you're a psycho for reacting so strongly as though she has been assaulted. A proposal at a wedding could be viewed as tacky, sure. So you ladies go full-on scorched earth over tacky? It's such an extreme overreaction that I think you and Amy are doing the guys a favor by releasing them from your mutual unhealthy and self-absorbed obsession with how a wedding day should be. This is Bridezilla BS and needs to be shamed into oblivion until other women stop behaving this way. A 10-year relationship over, a marriage annulled, all because he proposed his love to you and wanted to spend his life with you? Sounds like an overreaction. You say the wedding went pretty well for the most part, but they're getting the marriage annulled. How is that pretty well? Am I the jerk for making my husband give our daughter the money gifted to us for her future? Me, 26 female, and my husband, 32 male, had a baby in July of 2023. We had announced before Christmas of 2022 that we were expecting, and our families were ecstatic at the news. I've always wanted to be a mom since I was younger. My father-in-law was so ecstatic at the news that he gifted us $4,000 for Christmas to help with medical bills and for the baby. My father-in-law is a half owner of a multi-state, multi-million-dollar business, which my husband is slated to take over with his sister sometime next year. In our state, it's a requirement to have a social security number prior to opening a bank account, which my daughter did not have. Therefore, it was agreed to enter the money in our joint account until after our daughter was born. I don't monitor this joint account because it's at my husband's bank, not mine. To pay for medical costs associated with her birth, I had used my HSA, covering the full amount by myself. I also created her a bank account through my bank, which my husband was supposed to be a trustee on, but failed to sign the paperwork in time, so my dad was designated instead. Today, while driving home from an event, I asked about the $4,000, considering our daughter is a year old, and asked for permission to withdraw the funds and enter it into our daughter's legitimate account. My husband started claiming that I already used the money for medical bills and that I cashed it into my personal account. I told him that I did not do that, and I showed him my account from that time period. He said that if it was in the joint account, then it's gone, and that he used it towards hunting land, which I didn't give the okay to drop that money towards. He then called me ridiculous for even bringing it up, and said that our baby isn't entitled to that money as it was for medical expenses and care of her, which he barely pays anything towards. I pay 75% of daycare costs and all of the grocery bills, including formula and milk, and the baby is covered under my healthcare plan, as his health plan is awful from his family's business. We split our mortgage 50-50, but I was the one who paid for the entire down payment. The whole situation was brought up when it did, as I'm beginning to struggle to make ends meet, and I've been unable to transfer money every paycheck to our daughter's account. I've been putting $150 in per paycheck, as I want to be able to help her get a car and go to college if she chooses to. I explained this, and my husband accused me of blowing through the money again and refuses to check. I told him that I wasn't asking. I was telling him that he needs to check and that he needed to figure out where the money went. Am I the jerk? So, you are married to an entitled, narcissistic jerk. He doesn't pull his weight in the house financially or physically. Why are you with him? At least without him, you wouldn't have extra work around a home and you would get child support. Sorry, but sometimes it's better to be a single divorced parent. He doesn't deserve you. I would get a lawyer and make him either buy me out of the house or pay me for what he has put in with his 50% of mortgage payments and send him on his way. And depending on local laws, she might be able to have that $4,000 counted against him when the marital property and assets are divided in the divorce, as in deducted from his half as money he attempted to steal from their mutual assets. Financial infidelity is a thing, and it includes using joint accounts for personal purposes without confirming with your spouse. It's taken very seriously if it happens just before a divorce, because many spouses can do that on purpose when they realize their partner is about to leave them. OP should get a divorce lawyer ASAP. Not the jerk, but your husband is gaslighting you and he's taking advantage of you financially. It sounds like your daughter is only your daughter. It doesn't sound like he's really contributing much compared to you. And spending your joint money on himself without asking you? He's trying to make you think that you already spent that money instead of admitting that he took it. Your father-in-law gave you and your husband the money, not your daughter. It was meant to be used for your expenses. Your husband doesn't owe the money to your daughter. What your issue is that you are paying more than your share for the total monthly expenses and your husband is blowing money that you don't know about. Wait to leave him until after he takes his ownership in daddy's company. Wait for him to inherit the company, then divorce him and get half. Gotta get that bag right. Am I the jerk for not wanting to hijack my brother-in-law's honeymoon alongside my wife? I, 28 male, have been married to my wife, who's 27, for 2 years now. Financially, we've both been struggling a bit these past few years, but our situation is mostly fine now, even though we still live in a relatively modest life and we can't afford to casually go on expensive trips to other countries. Even our honeymoon was only a trip to a beach in our country where we've already been before, and even that cost us quite a bit. My wife's older brother, who's 33, is definitely much wealthier than us and is known for spoiling his now fiancée, who's 30, with gifts and expensive trips. My wife has definitely commented a couple of times on it, and I could feel she was secretly jealous about it. She and her brother are very close to each other, and he helped us quite a bit during the times we were struggling financially. He even allowed her to be a bridesmaid at his wedding, even though my wife and brother-in-law's fiancé aren't really close. Yesterday, my brother-in-law announced in front of their family that he wants to reward his sister for putting so much effort into planning his wedding by fully paying for both of us to go with him and his fiancé on their honeymoon in Paris for a full week. Before I could say anything, my wife immediately accepted it and hugged her brother. But then his fiancé started arguing with him about inviting us to their honeymoon without discussing it with her beforehand. My brother-in-law defended himself by saying he just wanted to help his sister experience something she can't do on her own. They were arguing when my wife suddenly intervened and told her brother's fiancé to stop acting like such an entitled brat because not everyone is as lucky as her to have a wealthy enough partner to support them. Brother-in-law's fiancé started yelling at my wife about how she's just a leech to her brother who took over her wedding and now wants to invade her honeymoon too. I eventually got my wife out of there, and on the way out, I told her that maybe it would be better for us to refuse going on my brother-in-law's honeymoon since his fiancé is clearly uncomfortable with it. She asked me if I was an idiot for wanting to pass up a trip to Paris for free, that she worked way too hard to convince her brother to invite us for her… She convinced the brother to invite you guys? That she worked way too hard to convince her brother to invite us for her to back out from it now. I told her that maybe she can arrange something else for us, and I don't want to be a reason why their marriage falls apart. But my wife told me that their marriage is not our business, but theirs, and if it falls apart, it would only be brother-in-law's fiancé's fault. I told my wife that I want no part in this, and I won't be going on this shared honeymoon, and she started arguing with me about how she can't believe I would act this way when she only did this for us, and said that she'll take her brother's offer without me if she has to. We ended up sleeping in different beds, and even today, my wife is still giving me the cold shoulder. So, am I the jerk for my refusal? Not the jerk. You're right that this situation is wrong, and your wife is acting aggressive and strange to you and her future sister-in-law. A honeymoon is for the bride and groom. Sit everyone down, thank your brother-in-law, apologize to his fiancé, if your wife refuses to do so, and suggest to go on a 4-person trip sometime after their honeymoon. Not the jerk. Your wife is showing a really ugly side of herself. There's no way that underneath she doesn't know that what she's doing is wrong. She is in full-on denial because she both wants to exploit her brother and doesn't want to feel bad about herself, which means that she has to tell herself that what she's doing is just fine and that anyone opposing her or getting in her way is the jerk. That means sister-in-law and you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Your wife's maiden name wouldn't happen to be Lannister, would it? Sweet home Alabama. My wife's career choice has turned into a social event. We've been married for 10 years and don't know what to do. My wife and I have been married for 10 years and we really do have an amazing relationship. We have 2 beautiful kids, a nice home, and I own my own business. Things are great. We have a great love life and social life outside of our family life with kids. My wife, after years in various parts of the industry, got her real estate license about 4 years ago. It was something to fill time, keep busy, and make a little extra income. The company she's been with for the last 2 or 3 years has a real emphasis on social networking events, and it's caused a rift between us. I've attended 1 or 2 of these events, and I've left them all with a troubling feeling. I would say 9 out of 10 people I've met rub me the wrong way. Many of them are very self-absorbed, could only talk about themselves and their success, and are very flirtatious with my wife. To be fair, she is incredibly attractive, but approachable and friendly. The last few events that my wife has attended resulted in her coming home late and involved excessive drinking. There are 2 things that really bother me about it. I feel that her professional relationships with men at her company have become more social than professional, and these networking events seem more like an excuse to go out and hang out with these other guys and drink with them. While many of them are married, I don't trust their intentions. Last week, my wife attended an event, and we agreed that she would be back by 12. I even went out of my way to make a point of asking her to be responsible and limit the amount that she drinks. Well, 2 a.m. rolled around and there was no sign of her. She wouldn't respond to text messages. I could see she was still in the general area of the event, which was over an hour from our house. Finally, after calling a few times, she answered. I could tell she had been drinking. She told me that she was staying at a hotel with one of her girlfriends, and I had to quickly remind her that I had to be up at 4:30 a.m. to get ready for work. Long story short, she took an Uber to the train and ended up driving her car home. As if this wasn't bad enough, I noticed on her phone that she had very flirtatious text messages with multiple married and single men. I've really had enough of this career choice. She doesn't seem responsible enough to attend these events, and it's causing a big divide between the two of us. I'm really at a loss for what my next step should be. There was a similar situation a few months ago, and at that point, she had promised me she was going to control herself and be more responsible, but it's pretty obvious she's not able to do that. The only thing I can say here is that it's no longer a professional event if she's not acting professional at it. I'm so sorry you're having to go through this, OP. I'm sure I will get hate for this, but I find realtors and housing developers, and frankly the whole industry, to be full of the most shallow, narcissistic, and inappropriate people on the planet. I think it's time to have a serious sit-down talk with her about boundaries and expectations for your marriage. If your wife can't get on board, you may have to separate. She wouldn't respond to your texts? Staying at a hotel with one of her girlfriends? Flirtatious text messages with multiple men? I think you know what's going on. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for embarrassing a lunch thief at work? I don't think I'm the jerk, but I've been getting some flack for it, so I really wanted to clear this up. So I started a new job recently. I work in a small studio and there are several others in the building. Think open plan office with sections assigned to each studio. The person I had an altercation with doesn't work for my studio, just FYI. I eat lunch around 1 p.m. and most people eat lunch at noon. I came down early to eat at noon. I made coffee, and while at the counter, I noticed my Tupperware in the sink, empty. Imagine my surprise when I turned around and saw a man I didn't even know sitting down at the table with my food on his plate. He had just stuck it in the microwave. Acting rashly since I was mad, I sat down next to him and said, "Hey, that looks good. Mind if I try it?" Then before waiting for an answer, I yanked the plate away from him and snatched his fork out of his hand. He just blinked in shock, as did everyone else as I started eating. He then, quite loudly, asked what I thought I was doing, and I replied, You know, this was actually much better when I first cooked it. It probably lost some flavor in the fridge." He caught on quickly that it was my food and he turned a little red. I then asked him where he got the gall to steal someone else's lunch and then asked them what they were doing when they took it back. He stuttered out some nonsense about not knowing it was mine, and I replied, "Well, you knew it wasn't yours, right?" He just mumbled something like an apology, and I said that's no problem. It was nice he had warmed it up for me at least, in an admittedly annoyed tone, and then he just got up and left, and the people there just stared in silence. Two of the silent watchers, maybe his mates, I don't know, told me that I was rude to him and that there had been nicer ways to go about it. I told them to think about how they'd feel if someone ate their food before saying they should focus on their own lunch and I'll focus on mine. Well, it's been a little awkward at lunch since then, and I have the impression a few people are talking crap about me at work now. Maybe I could have been nicer, sure. I still don't think I was wrong. But tell me, Reddit, am I the jerk? Unpopular opinion, but you're the jerk. People who steal food for no reason absolutely are jerks, but you don't know this guy's living situation or financial situation. He should not have stolen your stuff, but publicly humiliating someone who may have to steal to survive? Nope, I would never do that. I would have pulled him to the side and politely let him know that it was my lunch. That way you get your lunch back. Don't humiliate him and don't look like a jerk to the rest of the office. OP. I see where you're coming from, but I don't see this as an acceptable excuse. He doesn't know my financial situation either. I've moved recently into a new apartment with a roommate and had to pay 3 times rent for the first month, deposit and first month's rent. And my low 3 months probation pay at work just barely covers rent, not considering utilities, groceries, fuel for my car, etc. I've been dipping into savings till I can get better pay and spent the first month in my place eating on the floor because we had no furniture or spare cash to get some. It's very unfair to put a stranger's financial situation ahead of mine when I cook in bulk to save money and sometimes eat the same food for lunch all week. I saw some comments saying I should go to HR, but my studio doesn't have HR, and the perp doesn't work for the same place. We do have a de facto office manager, but I don't want to take it any further since I'm still new here and on probation. I think my reaction might have been enough. Update. I finally found out from a new friend at work that yes, the lunch thief had struck before. Apparently, everyone wrote their names on their lunch to combat this, and the thief then targeted unmarked lunch or lunch items. Guess no one told me. People apparently started being petty and standoffish to the thief since, and he blames me for that. Also, according to my new friend, most were actually very pleased that the thief was finally identified and dealt with. I was assured that besides the thief in question and his cronies, no one thought I was being a jerk. However, not knowing much about me, they assumed I was a very serious or cliquey person from my reaction, which I mean is fair. I dress very professionally when most of the office dresses quite casually, which probably added to that. I've started to come down to lunch earlier to chat with some people, and the office seems to be warming up to me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the lunch thief? Please let us know. How on earth anyone can make excuses for a lunch thief who gets called out, I'll never know. My boss is rude to my husband, and I don't know how to bring it up to him. I work as a bookseller, and about a year ago, our bookshop got a new manager. This was a great thing for the shop and for me personally. He's much more competent than anyone we've had in the past and has a real drive for developing people. I happen to be the person he's focused on developing, and it's been wonderful. I get paid more now, have lots more responsibility, and I'm being provided with all the training to start managing my own shop before Christmas. I'm being treated as a rising star in the business. We're part of a very big chain and given a lot of opportunities to excel, which of course feels fantastic. I'm very grateful. There's only one thing though. My boss is very keen to socialize with me outside of work, but one-on-one and as part of the management team. The culture in our shop has always been that partners, spouses, housemates, friends, etc. are very welcome at these events. However, my manager seems to absolutely despise my husband. I can't find any reason for this. Obviously, I love him, so you could argue that I'm biased. But really, everybody adores my partner. He's gentle, fun, and a good listener, and he always proves a popular addition. Honestly, half of my colleagues probably prefer him to me. He's only spoken to my boss a couple times, and only briefly, but my boss is openly dismissive of him. He makes disparaging remarks about him, stops engaging in conversations when I bring him up, and recently, when my husband arrived at some drinks, my boss visibly and obviously swung his entire body around in his seat so that he was facing away from us and left not long after that. I have no idea what to do. I have a fantastic working relationship with my boss, and frankly, I plan to capitalize on that. But this makes me really uncomfortable. For further context, I'm a woman and he's a man, and he's single. However, he's often told me that his preference is for very done-up, alternative but feminine women. Which does not describe me. I'm scraggly-haired, no makeup, shapeless clothing wear. At first, I tried to dismiss his disparaging comments as an awkward attempt at humor, but after he so rudely turned away from my partner at the drinks, I'm angry. I don't know how to bring this up with them, or if I even should. Help. Update. The situation remained an odd one. While I wussed out of taking your advice when it came to actually talking to my manager about it, I thought there was enough plausible deniability that it might make me look like a bit of a nutter. I did start shutting down the comments when they cropped up and being rather icier than I normally would be. As women, we're so socialized to be warm and accommodating that I think this took him by surprise, and the snide comments stopped pretty much dead. I've also set a firm boundary on socializing with him in anything but the largest, most work-centric outings. He got a bit snippy when I didn't come to his birthday, but sorry, I was out with my husband. Some friends of ours recently had a baby, so we had a very fun evening playing house with said baby, while the new parents got to have a rare night out together. I even showed my boss some adorable pictures of my husband cuddling the baby. I know, it's petty. However, the sheer wealth of commenters speculating that my boss has a crush on me has me thinking. They're probably right, and if they are right, then the way he's going about things is uncomfortable, creepy, and unethical. As we move into the much busier period in our shop, he started scheduling just the two of us to work late in the shop to catch up. Normally, this is a job that a team of at least 3 people would do, presumably to avoid situations like this. To add to the issue, as my commenters predicted, I didn't end up getting my own store. Imagine I needed a 90% on my performance review to get promoted into it. They gave me an 89.9. Boss and the HR rep, who always sits in on these reviews as a representative of the regional manager, said in recognition of how hard I work and how many additional duties I take on, they'd enter me for a specific excellence award, which comes with a cash bonus. They've since come back to me and said, unfortunately, it turns out that's not what the award is for. I then set a meeting to discuss pay and advance the points that I'm taking on much more work than I was at this point last year, and getting paid effectively less for it due to the rampant inflation. The answer was that a raise was not possible, and the plan going forward would be to schedule another performance review after Christmas and discuss it then. Following this, I attended the Christmas meeting where they told us how our old shop was forecast to take upwards of $60,000 a day. I've had a couple of days since then to reflect on how I feel, and I've come up with it: undervalued and angry. Update 2. I got another job. After I wrote to you with my update, I decided I was furious enough to quit without another job offer in my pocket. To the abject horror of my parents, I did just that. I was, of course, very nervous about going voluntarily unemployed at the beginning of a recession, but I'm so pleased to report that, thanks in no small part to your job application advice, I've been offered another job. It's fewer hours, more money, more benefits, and to the relief of my formerly horrified parents, much more prestige. Since the offer came in, my boss has noticeably ignored me, which was an improvement. On my last day, he then handed me a card with a poem inside of it, and I kid you not, it said, "Don't tell your hubby." I just laughed at it and said, of course I would tell my husband. We share everything. Boss then squeezed my shoulder and said, "I'll miss you," in an embarrassing heartfelt voice. Yikes. I did of course show my husband the card. I then took great pleasure in deleting my former boss from my phone, thoughts, and my life. I'm willing to bet that the creepo was pushing his usual type so that when he made a move, he could pull the, "You're so different from what I'm usually attracted to. You must be something special." Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.